nerds. This is SNN Nerd. I'm your host, Sarah Belmont, and with me, as always, is our Mr. Producer, Will Polk. How are you doing tonight, Will?
Doing very well, Sarah. It seems like every Wednesday, we just have our news sheet goes from TBD to like, oh wow, how are we going to like fit all this in?
I know, and
Yeah.
and it's technically Tuesday because we record on Wednesdays now. So
Yeah.
Tuesday night, everything explodes, which just better reason to record on a Wednesday as opposed to a Thursday. Am I right?
You're right. You're so right.
Oh man, geez, I don't even want to talk about the other news item. I just want to go straight into the casting news where we
Yeah.
found out that Ruby Rose is officially not going to return as Batwoman in season 2.
Yeah, that was wow. I mean, when I saw that news yesterday, and and given that we're just off the heels of season 1 finale, and feeling pretty good about the series, how things ended the first season, given it was a COVID shortened season,
Yeah.
and then you get that news. I mean, it's not like it's just supporting character, but the lead of a show, and in particular show that has so much buzz about it at the beginning, just because of have a lesbian superhero who is actually played by a lesbian actress, and really had grown into the role, and then boom, you get that news, and I was just like, whoa.
Yeah, it just, I had literally finished watching the season finale of Batwoman, and then I found out about that, and I'm just like, no. But then I got to thinking about it, like after my initial reaction, and it's really funny because I kept thinking about those interviews that we listened to with on the Michael Rosenbaum podcast.
Yeah.
Where they were talking about the workload and just the struggles of being isolated in Vancouver, and it's not meant for everyone. It's not meant for all actors and actresses to sign on to CW show, literally have their life uprooted, and them have to day in, day out shoot a show for a majority of the year because of how long the seasons are. So when I started thinking about that, I'm just like, okay, so maybe she thought that life and being the lead of a TV show would be different, and it wasn't. It just didn't work for her. So I don't, because she's used to movies, and she's used to Netflix series, which Netflix, I'm sure it's long hours, but it's also they're shorter seasons than a CW.
Right, and also in Orange Is the New Black, she was a supporting character, so all the weight of a show was not on her. And same with the feature film. I mean, you're just one member of a large ensemble, again, as a supporting character, and your feelings and thoughts on this are pretty consistent with some of the stories that started coming out today, and even. I just happened to have an interaction as well with someone who's close to the situation, and about the hours and the longevity, and even in their conversation I was having with an individual, I thought about Stevens and Grant's conversation, in particular Grant, how he talked about how he had to turn down several things that he had booked.
Yep.
Because of the scheduling of episodic television, and I also think back to what was the actress in the Fresh Off the Boat, whenever she had her when she had her Twitter meltdown when the series was renewed, and how she was just like, and of course she got crushed on Twitter for her reaction, but again, that's what happens when actors sign up for episodic television. And when you have seasons that are 8-9 months of filming, it really leaves them a very small window to do other projects. And so you can understand as an artist why they probably just felt suffocated and hamstrung. And so it'll be interesting, in thinking about Ruby. I mean, Grant hasn't signed on for seasons 8 and 9 yet. I mean, he's talked about it, but it's a real possibility that we'll be having this conversation, sometime later this year, or maybe in 2021, about Grant Gustin leaving the Flash. And so if he decides to, I mean, but he'll probably end up signing, maybe doing a 1 year to year kind of deal.
He'll do a Mel. What I don't like is the idea of him leaving the Flash and then suddenly the Flash is over, and it's like, no.
Right. Yeah. He may. Yeah, I think you're right. I think he probably will do an ML, just like, okay, I'll come back for another season and a half kind of deal, and yeah, that will have a good clean exit strategy like this. But yeah, I think with Ruby's situation, getting back to her, I mean, it definitely sounds like, she was just probably didn't fully grasp what she was getting herself into, and probably it's probably for the best for all parties involved that she moved on. Even though it sucks from a fan standpoint, given how the character has grown and how she's grown into the role. When we think about how we used to talk about how wooden she seemed to by the end of this season, how much more relaxed she felt about Kate. And so I guess it's not unprecedented. I mean, I know there's been other series. It's pretty unprecedented for the lead. I mean, unless the lead has, there has been situations where actors have passed away,
right.
or something like that. But I mean, I was just trying to rack my brain as far as like, a show. I mean, I know it's like the two Darrens on like the old show Bewitched, where they switched out the lead actors. But as far as like,
it's the Arrowverse, so there are plenty of loopholes for them to pull. Right now on the show, we have a person who can just make new faces out of skin. So I'm sure that they will figure this out and how to do it. However, we won't forget.
Yeah, we won't. That's the thing.
Season 2 is going to play out. What if Ruby Rose had continued on? Or, that scene would have been better acted by Ruby Rose. Like, that's the hard thing, is that also, I don't know who they will get, because any actress who comes onto that show, they know that they're going to get compared to Ruby. And in season 1, and it makes me even more interested in season 2, if I'm being honest. Yeah. But I also am just like, they'll figure it out. I know they will, but I don't know if they're gonna, even if they do figure it out, I don't know if what they choose to do will be like the best thing ever. And I really also don't know, like, however they come up with to explain it, or even if they don't. I mean, they don't have to. They can just switch it out and everybody can act normal. And viewers like, I mean,
they could totally do that. I mean, there's really, again, because for the characters in that show, other than Luke and Mary and Julia Pennyworth, and well. Yeah, I mean, there's really no reason for them to have to like explain why all of a sudden Kate looks different. Because at least to the rest of the world, Batwoman's wears a cowl. So and the characters who do know who she is in her non-vigilante life, there's really no real reasoning to get into some tortured story point about why all of a sudden Kate looks different. Yeah.
Speaking about people looking differently, I want to get into this finale. I do.
Okay.
So this finale was interesting. I'm going to be perfectly honest. I was bored for about 75% of it. It was really. And it's again, this is Batwoman, so it's not that it's a horrible episode. It just felt so. It's an episode where you bridge two parts of the story together to set up your finale. It's not really a finale episode. However, I guess we do predict the future, Will, because
Yeah,
last
I
week
guess
we were talking about how and when they introduced Batman
Yep.
and Bruce Wayne. And
Mm-hmm.
would you believe it or not, at the very end of this episode, they figured it out. And I told you they would jump the shark if they did it now. And they did it. However, I like the way they did it.
Yeah, I did too. Yeah, I thought of you when I saw that, and I was just like, okay, I'm gonna be good. I'm not gonna like go, oh, that ending, because I didn't want to spoil it for you, but or get your hopes up, and you'd be like, damn it, Will, you did it again. But that was I have to give it to him. That was a very I like the way they introduced Bruce into the series. I won't quibble with it, because it was. Yeah, I mean, it was a very inventive way of bringing it into the character, and then how, and really so many story possibilities going into season 2 now that Tommy is playing Bruce Wayne, and especially given that he knows he knows about Wayne Towers and the Batcave under there, and his alter ego, so between that and with the journal, and Kate having the one shard of kryptonite in her office hidden, and all the little things like that, it really creates some real possibilities, especially if the actor can be less wooden than some other versions of Bruce that we've seen.
Yeah, again, you chose the right word for it. It's just inventive, because this whole, and it almost redeems Hush from last week. I'm still not over that. And hopefully he won't be walking around and being like, Hush. Like,
yeah, I don't think so.
You are Bruce freaking Wayne.
Yeah, Hush may return, but it'll be whenever they figure out that that's not Bruce. But
yeah, which I mean, I still want, and I don't know how you feel about this, but in my mind, if they can pull off season 2 with Tommy being Bruce,
mm-hmm.
and having everyone find out about it and it all unfold without really introducing Bruce,
mm-hmm.
That would work really well for me, because obviously, once the other Bruce shows up, there's an issue. But I mean, I still want them to hold back on the real Bruce,
mm-hmm.
but I think this is a good compromise to get us into that season 2, and also with, I mean, the lead of the show, her face is going to change.
Yeah. We were getting all these changes. changes. Yeah, that should be the name of the. Yeah, that should be the premiere episode of season 2. It's just like, changes are coming.
What did you think about Alice killing Mouse? I thought that was so weird.
I think that was. I like that arc, because I thought it was going to come maybe last week when Mouse was having the moment in the
mm-hmm.
tavern where he was just like, let's just go and leave and all that. I thought it was going to happen then, but I think it really, again, Alice has been, I think, the MVP of this season. I mean, Rachel Skarsten has done just a phenomenal job with this character, because we were so worried, as we've talked about before, we were worried it was going to become kind of a parody or just a very stale villain. But killing of Mouse was like so Alice in so many levels, because she was so obsessive about the journal and trying to find the kryptonite, and then she also has a tender spot for Mouse, even given, as we've learned this season, just how she ended up being found by Mouse's father, and all the being in the root cellar and all that kind of stuff, and her and the whole and the grand and the mother, the mother and the whole face things. I mean, there's just so many layers to Alice, and she and Mouse were basically prisoners of that effed up existence, and so she did have a tender spot for him, but at the same time, because of her obsession with trying to achieve her ends, at the end of the day, for Alice, it's all about making and completing her goal, and
Right.
and so and if there's collateral damage along the way, she will she is capable of carrying it out, feel terrible about it, and because it was a very heartfelt moment, even though it did get cut short with the commercial and kind of took away some of the emotional edge off of the scene.
When I
but
stream.
but at the same time, but at the same time, it was just like, she felt it, but then at the same time, she was like, and she sold it, and so you still see those remnants of like humanity in Alice, and then she gets back to the task.
Yeah, I guess for whatever reason, and maybe because I was watching this episode through the lens of this is the last episode, but it was originally not meant to be the season finale. Mm-hmm. And so maybe that's why I was just under a skewed perception of what was going on, because and while listening to you talk about the scene, I'm replaying it in my mind, and I'm like, yeah, shit. For some reason, it just fell flat for me. Even the acting, and I love Rachel. I think she's excellent in the role, but for some reason, I did not feel the layers. I thought it was forced. I thought like, well, this really. Usually when Alice does crazy things, they make sense to me. I'm like, yeah, she would do that. That's a natural response. Mm-hmm. Natural is a stretch. But I for whatever reason, to me, this one came out of left field. I don't know why. Like, and when I say out of left field, I'm not saying in a good way, because sometimes curves like that are, but it felt very strange, and it was weirdly placed in the episode. There was something about this pacing, and for whatever reason, that's overall why this episode in particular didn't really work. It was funny because last week we've spent so much time with Sophie and Julia, and then this week, at one point, I'm like, wait a second, where's Sophie and Julia? Yeah. And they come out at the end out of nowhere, and I'm like, what? Yeah. And I get it. I understand. But I'll go back to what I said 2 weeks ago. That should have been the season finale. I would have not continued. And this is silver lining. Like, this proves that these seasons need to be shorter, because I feel like if we had gotten the extra episodes, I would have been like, okay, Batwoman, I'm glad season ended. Overall good, but a few weak spots, especially towards the end.
Yeah. I can't disagree with you on that one. But I think also, the other thing about this series is, to your point about it, 2 weeks ago could have been the finale. So, remember, it was, it only had initially a 13 order order. So it was the way they have structured these stories. It's anything after 13 is just like gravy, because when it finally got picked up for the full order. So I think, unlike the other shows, that's, you could tell that they were struggling. It was a struggle to try to wrap your head around like it being an ending. This one, they really had a kind of structure like any. We're not promised a second season, so they were kind of structured in a way that you could wrap up things in one season. So I think for that standpoint, that helped them with this, having the pandemic cutting things short. The other thing about you know, you were talking about Alice, and one thing I thought about when I was talking about the obsession nature is how similar she and Jacob are as far as just their single-minded of task.
Oh yeah.
And I just so that was one of the things I did like about the episode, is just sort of seeing how they were both just so like driven, you know, what the ends justify the means as far as getting to their goal. In Jacob's case, he was like this alliance with Batwoman to stop Titan, and then you know, whenever they were in the football stadium and they managed to take Titan down, then of course immediately turned and flipped, you know, and was trying to apprehend Kate. And it's the same with Mouse and Alice. So, you know, it's seeing those DNA familial personality lines there with these characters that I think really sets up for a good, strong dynamic with the interactions between the storyline in this first season, which makes for very interesting television. So when those scenes were on, those were pretty interesting for me. You know, you're talking about things that fell flat. For me, the whole Titan story fell flat. That's where I was kind of like, okay, I kind of checked out on a lot of those scenes, because it's just like, I was like, what's the point here?
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, it was
villain of the week. Villain of the week. I do have one question. Do we know where and who Mary's biological father is?
You know, it has not been established.
Yeah. Okay. So, spoiler alert, future villain coming to town, gonna be a thing.
Yeah. As far as, because if I recall back from the pilot and stuff, I mean, Jacob and Mary's mother, obviously, you know, socialite marriage, that kind of thing. But I don't think they really explored her backstory as far as who her father is, you know, and it was really more the whole stepsister issues that she and Kate had.
But in a good way. Like, that's something I like about that character, is that it would be typical to make her the bratty, stupid stepsister, but they really flip that on its head, where this is a girl who lost her mother early on in the season, and then is trying to form this sisterhood with her stepsister, because who else does she have? And just the way she kept emphasizing Jacob's my father too in this episode just clicked on me. I'm like, right, but you are stepsisters, so where is your real dad, and what is the story, and what happened? So I just wrote that down because and that's a testament to this show. Like, even in a boring episode, I'll find something where I'm like, I wonder if they're gonna pull that string, which they'll probably will eventually.
They will, and also I think it was a good way to, again, as I was talking before about the threads with all these characters and their various arcs, and of course, Kate having to, again, and it really sets up this, you know, sets up other parts of the story, dealing with one having to come out to her father once, and now again having, you know, not being able to come out to her father as far as being Batwoman, and so, you know, just that emotional, you know, issue of, you know, that she's been dealing with, and trying to, you know, help the city out and be the vigilante that can do things that the Crows and the police can't do. But yet she can't tell her father this, because he is just so obsessed with, like, you know, this is, you know, like Javert, or thinking back to early seasons of Arrow with Quentin Lance, you know, bringing this person, this vigilante, to quote unquote justice. So, so there's, you know, there's those pieces to the story as well, and, you know, and especially when Sophie is, even though she doesn't know Kate's Batwoman, but still trying to show how Batwoman is asset to Gotham, and Jacob needs to see that. So it definitely plays a lot of good beats with how to use all the supporting characters in a way to support the underlying story and in meaningful ways, instead of like ways that's to some of the other Arrowverse shows. Sometimes you're kind of like wondering, okay, this subplot's going nowhere. Why are we dealing with it? Even though I will say the subplot with Titan this week and trying to force the issue of CTE was the people quibble about the Arrowverse and trying to do social things and whatnot, and this was one of those places where it did seem very forced, trying to deal with the issue of football players and athletes and CTE. I was like, okay, this is like not landing right with me. I'm sorry.
Speaking about shows that have subplots that go nowhere, you want to talk about Supergirl?
Yeah, so I like Lex.
Wrote 3 things down. I have no idea how many things he wrote down, but I know that he wrote down probably about Supergirl the same amount of notes I took about Stargirl and vice versa.
Yeah. Oh, you're right, because I really like Stargirl, but this season has been for me a disappointing season. I know, and I don't want to belabor that point. I don't want to run our listeners away by complaining about Supergirl. I mean, this episode, we finally get. It was David Harewood's. I think, was this directorial debut, or was it his? Or has he directed a couple shows before? Because I did like the direction of the show. I mean, it was a good episode from that standpoint.
Yeah.
But
that's so shady. Oh my god.
But so Alex did finally get a new costume. I like the costume itself. The eye makeup it wasn't feeling it. But I don't want to turn this into a whole like vetching session about Supergirl.
Why do you let me start?
You go right ahead. You asked me, so I was just trying to start.
Oh my god, Supergirl. Yeah, so we don't want to make it a venting session, so I'll just say that the part I did appreciate about this episode is actually had everything to do with Brainy.
Yeah.
Because I really like how they connected Dreamer's visions of that crazy Brainy to the sacrifice he ends up making. That, correct me if I'm wrong, Will, I fell asleep at the end of the episode. Did he survive? Like, they're going to rescue him, right? Or did they rescue him?
That's the big cliffhanger.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Okay.
So, it's a cliffhanger.
Yeah. All right. So, I like that too, because there is, I mean, in my mind, they catch him right in time and everything, but they could also not, and just not bring that actor back and just say, no, he really did a self-sacrifice, because that's what this was all about. This was about Lex. Lex is willing to do a lot to kill Supergirl, but I don't think he's willing to sacrifice his own life to kill Supergirl.
No. That's definitely not. He
Yeah. So I like that connection and that the exchanges between Lex and Brainy, especially at the end when Brainy thinks he has the upper hand and Lex claims he doesn't. I still think Brainy did. I still think that Lex was just trying to save face. But yeah, that was the highlight for this episode for me.
Totally. Yeah, I completely agree. Because that's been a very, I will say the Brainy arc with his arrangement with Lex this season was definitely one of the higher points of the season for me, and the way that the whole scenario played out, Brainy going back to native Brainy look, and you're right, that was a very, especially thinking about last week's episode when the DEO was destroyed and Brainy and Dreamer had their moment there where he could have opened up to her and shared what was going on, and he failed to do so. And then carrying it forward to this week where she's having the visions of Brainy in the Leviathan, starship, and trying to recapture the three gods. That was I did like the way that they utilized and closed out this particular arc in their relationship, and also especially when they managed to, it was one of those situations where like the Flash this season, where the bad guys actually won and at the end, because Lex did manage to get capture the three gods in the bottle,
Mm-hmm.
and he delivered them to his mother,
Mm-hmm.
and it was and so he has basically lives to fight another day, and then of course the Brainy is left in a situation where the rest of the team, weren't able to help him, and he's in this situation where we're wondering, we go into season 6 wondering if Brainy lives or dies. So that was definitely one of the higher points of the episode. I think I will, as I mentioned last week, I was finally, after many weeks of not feeling the Kokara Lena storyline, I think they had a good resolution to that, where again, you're talking about sacrifice, and Lena was willing to sacrifice herself to save Kara whenever Kara went into the VR world, when whenever she was threatened by Obsidian. So that was another really good through line with this episode, as far as people making sacrifices for the greater good.
Yeah, it was funny because when it was all coming together about this idea of, we were talking about it last week, how many different subplots this show actually had this season, and how various episodes would focus on one and the others would be in the back, and it was hard to keep track, and how did they all come together, and I think that's something that this episode did. It did bring everything together and made it more in sync.
Mm-hmm.
It still felt a bit odd to me, because I don't know why, but you're gonna laugh. When they were talking about how pain makes us human and everything, and it's all about overcoming it and everything, not hiding from it, and not trying to make yourself forget and hold on, I kept thinking about Star Wars. Because that's the whole thing, like Kylo Ren.
Yeah.
You have to kill the past.
Yep.
and the whole analysis about why he hurts himself in that fight in The Force Awakens, it's because pain, aggression, and all of that. And so I went straight to Jedi. And I was like, are you a Sith? I don't know what's going on. So, but and I guess it's funny, because when you say the bad guys win, for whatever reason, at the end of this episode, I know there were cliffhangers, but it didn't feel like there was something missing about a push, and maybe it's just like I'm dead inside or something, but I didn't have any emotional reactions to anything that went on. Although I did like the Brainy stuff, I didn't even remember if they saved him or not, guys. That's how much I paid attention. It felt very like, okay, because you have Lex say, I'm the winner, and let's get to work, Mom. And then you have Lena and Kara say, oh, we still got one more bad person to catch. And I'm like, okay, 20, you guys need some more writing.
Yeah. I get that. I mean, I think it's just, I mean, I think I agree with your earlier point that it did pull itself, like a lot of the disparate storylines together, and really did. I don't know if it's through just good editing or what, because I think they were struggling to get these episodes completed before they had to shut down. So so I think they did work well, and I think as far as again as a unintended season finale, we they can move. We can start season 6 of Supergirl in go in a fresh new direction with not having to rehash all this VR stuff, because I think Kara made it very, with going into the VR world, saving everybody from basically the Infinity War, everybody whole population goes away ending. She accomplished that, and so we can move past that whole story now, and really focus on whatever the fallout is from Brainy. I don't think Brainy's going to die, but I think they're going to make us. He may be off the.
Don't say Antarctica.
No, he won't. He won't be. He won't. But I think he won't be. He probably, when they do return in season 6, he may be incapacitated for maybe an episode or two.
In the bathroom.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, put in his inhibitors for taking him out. I don't know, but so I think they have, with Lex following up to gods and stuff, there's some things that they can do with that, but I'm hoping they'll come up with some fresh ideas and
really just need to stop watching Power Rangers, because bottling up gods, that is Power Rangers. And also Alex's new costume, Power Rangers.
Yeah.
Continue, Will.
Yeah, thank you for bailing me out there. Yeah, so I'm just hoping for a fresh start, and for the show next season. So we'll see what direction they go in. But this show will be a mid-season replacement in 2021. So when they return, it'll be a mid-season return. So maybe by that point I'll start looking forward to it and feeling excited for it right now. But it's finishing up, and I'm like, okay, I'm good with that. And let's move on to Doom Patrol.
Yeah, but not quite yet. We still have to talk about Stargirl tonight, because Will made me watch it. Now,
I did.
Will, did you tell me that it was cinematic, or did I see that elsewhere online?
I said it had a cinematic feel to it.
Okay.
I didn't say it was cinematic, but a feel to it. But definitely, because I watched it right after watching Supergirl, so you definitely could tell it. It's the CW budget versus the DCU budget.
Not that much difference.
Actually, it was a pretty significant difference. If you watch them back to back, I don't know if you did or not, but it's definitely noticeable.
No, I had Batwoman to watch. I didn't watch that. I watched the last bit. When you throw the word cinematic, whether you put feel in front of it or not, sir, to me, I'm like, oh my God, is this going to be good? And I know there's some listeners who also were tweeting about it last night, and also kind of made me have higher expectations. You probably went in with much lower expectations.
I did.
So I was excited, and then I was watching it. I'm like, what the heck, Will? This is exactly what I thought it would be based on the trailer.
Yeah, well, I went in with it I went into it with low expectations. Exactly. I did, and I was not sure about it, and I will admit that this show, I see why they did do the cross airing on the two different platforms, because it's not quite the edgy, groundbreaking things we've seen from the DC universe, like i.e. Doom Patrol, which was very inventive.
Oh God, it's nowhere close to Doom Patrol.
Yeah, it's nowhere close, exactly. But from the production standpoint and bigger budget that type of thing. It was, it was clearly, it had that DC universe flavor to it.
Yeah. I mean, I put it on par with what we get from Titans and Swamp Thing.
Yeah, exactly. And but not quite as dark as those two shows. And then you have but then you have the story side of the CW where it does try to appeal to a broader audience, and I think it successfully does that. And so, but
I want to make one point before I forget this, because you keep bringing up Doom Patrol.
Yeah.
Okay, tell me if I'm wrong, but did this town that they're living in, Bluebell or whatever, Nebraska, didn't that remind you of a certain street that appeared on
Andy Street?
Yeah. I'm pretty sure that's the same set. I'm pretty sure they moved Andy Street. Both shows were filmed in outside Atlanta, so that's probably why. It was so distracting to me because I'm just like, well, everyone's saying hi because they're controlled by Andy. Duh.
Yeah. I mean, but that's you're right. I think it was the same set as Andy the Street. But anywho, so I could get that. So so there was that piece of it. The story, it wasn't like groundbreaking as far as taking any chances. I did. One of the things I did do, and I know I'm a complete nerd for doing this, and you can go ahead and get at me. I did compare. I did watch the two different versions just because that's just how I am. So, and there were some significant scenes that they cut from the CW airing that I think is going to hurt the story down the line.
Oh, what scenes?
So they cut. Remember when they cut the scenes where Courtney first discovered Pat's locker of all the stuff, and so they cut that completely out of it. There were some things where they trimmed about, obviously because it's on broadcast, they trimmed about 10 minutes of the episode. They completely cut the Pat and Courtney trying to bond in the car.
Okay.
Where it was so super awkward. So so again at the back end of the episode, whenever he has the conversation about Stripey and those kind of things, it doesn't completely change the plot, but it just takes away some of the depth, I think, from that back end scene of the episode. So it would have been nice if they had kept that in, or not kept it in. They trimmed a little bit. They completely cut remember the map of Blue Valley that she found in Pat's locker.
Did they cut the gymnastics sequence that was totally weird, random, and unnecessary?
They trimmed it. They did trim it. They trimmed that the training sequence on the roof. They did trim that. They trimmed a little bit of the beginning, just some of this banter between Pat and Starman. And then there are a couple others, and then some of the little side plots as far as like meeting the garage guy, Larry, the muscle dude. They trimmed some of that scene, and they trimmed. I think they either trimmed or they cut her meeting the cheerleader. So some of the teenage interactions when she moved to Blue Valley, and also whenever she left. When she left LA, they trimmed a scene where she left her good friend there. So they did some trimming, and then they did some just straight up cuts. And one of the bigger cuts I thought that probably will come back to make a difference is to one of the points you had on the rundown, which was the whole question about the Starman being her father.
Mm-hmm.
Because they drop a name that was cut in the CW version, Sam Sam Curtis.
Mm-hmm.
And so in the comic book, we learned actually Sam Curtis is actually her father. And of course in this, of course in the series, Stargirl, Courtney thinks that Sam Curtis is just the alias that Sylvester Pembroke was using for, because she can't, she was saying that she can't find anything about her real father on the grid as far as Sam. So there was that was another cut that was made that I think is going to impact the story down the line.
I'm confused. Yeah. Is Starman her father or not?
I don't think he is. So
okay. I'm glad. That would have been way too weird and convenient and just a bigger cliche.
Yeah.
And I think that my issue with this show is that it feels very small. And it feels very narrow. I want to, for some reason, I keep thinking about the word narrow, where like a show, even Flash, even though it has its issues, and Batwoman, they have very large, expansive casts. There's a lot of different subplots. There's a lot of different actions. And in this episode, and this pilot in particular, and I get it, it's a lot of exposition. It's set up for characters. Even the things they set up, though, felt very small and very. Why is it taking us so long to get from point A to point B? We've met one other person or two other issues. Why are these scenes? Why is she still doing gymnastics on the broom? I know it's not a broom. Yeah. I know it's a staff, but still, it just felt very like. Why is this taking so long? Like the pacing was off for me, and it just, the only thing that did feel large and big and exciting was the JSA part and this whole idea of this history and how she knows about the JSA. She has her beliefs about them. And also Pat's backstory, I thought that was great, that he's a sidekick, he's stripey, and he's still doing sidekick things, getting in trouble.
Well, see, that's where, to your point, it feeling small. See, I think that actually appeals to me because, and maybe if there is something that's different from like the Arrowverse and some of the other shows, and where the show can like build its sort of niche is that smallness or that more grounding, more not grounded, but more intimate type of show where it is dealing with, we'll see a young teenager trying to find her way as a superhero, especially one who is living out the legacy of the famous JSA, and then assembling her own version of the JSA in Blue Valley as the series progresses. And so, so I think it'll grow, because especially when you think with Brainwave and the Icicle and the conversation, tying it back to what you were talking about, the big scale, it felt of larger scale of the opening with the original JSA, with Courtney's fight at the end of the episode, it really, I saw the potential where they could go with it and tying those things together, and also tying the fact that that Brainwave's son is in the same high school as Courtney, and he's
that part.
The jock who's a big jerk and that kind of thing, athlete. So so there's a lot of good. I think you're right. There was a lot of exposition and they did a lot of setup, but I think it was necessary just to sort of just to start establish this universe of in this new town of Blue Valley, and really establish the characters, give us a little bit of backstory. And I think that's where I was mentioning before, I think some of the CW cuts. So folks, if you've been thinking about, if you really like the show and I recommend at least in the free trial of the DC universe just to get the first 2 episodes because they are longer than the CW versions, and then of course you could drop it because from episode 3 to the rest of the first season they're the same time, so there won't be any changes, any cuts that CW will have to make to broadcast it. But I think those little nuggets that I pointed out, I think whenever we get further along in the season and if we continue to talk about the show, I think those moments will be these moments like, oh yeah, now that how all those things connect, and also one of the other backstory things where they changed from did some slight tweaks from the comic and adapted to television. So we did learn, so Pat and Sylvester, there was a Star Spangled Kid, and Pat was the sidekick to that. But instead, the difference is in the comic book, the Star Spangled Kid Sylvester ended up becoming Skyman, and actually Starman was another character altogether that's not in the series who actually gave her the cosmic staff. So that was one of the changes that they made. But other structural things within it are pretty consistent with her backstory in the comic book.
So I think that probably at the end of this is also a big difference where you're a super nerd, I'm a semi nerd, and for whatever reason, this just doesn't appeal to my nerdiness.
Yeah, and give it the whole 3-episode try, and then if you feel...
No, I didn't say I was giving up on it. I think you're seeing, I completely understand where you're coming from on it, and I will give you that coming from Supergirl, Batwoman, and Flash, this is a different take because we're dealing with a high school, or we're dealing with a father-daughter abandonment issue. It has some vibes that we've seen in recent superhero shows of like, are the heroes the good guys or are they the bad guys? Considering the effects they might have on their families or the people they care about.
Yeah.
So I mean, I'm going to give it a try. I'm not enthused, and I think you should be very careful when you use the word cinematic. That's all I'm saying.
I hear you. And like I said, I think I may have, again, I guess with the production values and whatnot, but really felt, I guess I maybe got a little bit too enthusiastic, but even when I watched the DC Universe version versus even the CW version when it was all chopped up and stuff, it seemed like I was like, damn, did they cheapen it somehow with their transfers? Because even when I was watching on the CW version, it just seemed the CW cut, I should call it. It just seemed like they had I don't know, darkened the hues or something. It just didn't feel the same way as I was watching on a DC app. But anyway. Again, I think, as I said before, if you really do like the show, I recommend, at least for the first 2, just sign up for the free trial period for the DC Universe app. They're not paying me to say this. I'm just saying, if you really like the show, I think you'll benefit from having the extra 10 minutes of content.
Speaking of people being too enthusiastic, Release the Snyder Cut is coming to HBOMax in 2021, whatever the fuck that means.
Yeah. Well, I guess the peoples have spoken, and the big corporate overlords have listened, and they are definitely they are completing the Snyder version of Justice League.
In quarantine. Because really what happened is they were told they can't go into work to finish the projects they were currently working on, so they finished the one that had already been completed, and they're going to redo it. Yay!
Yeah, well, yeah, pretty much. But well, actually, it's with the Snyder Cut. So they are trying. I think they are giving them anywhere, I guess, about $20 to $30 million. There's a pretty detailed story in the Hollywood Reporter about it. But one of the noteworthy things about the Snyder Cut on HBO Max. One, they need content for their new platform, but two, that goes into this. It could be either a big 4-hour long director's cut, which, good Lord, that's like getting into the Irishman realm, or they may break it up into 6 episodes to be aired in 2021 over on that new platform. So again, they need content, and what better way to do it is something that fans have been clamoring for. So, all you Daredevil fans, maybe you can get Marvel to do the same. I don't know, but in all seriousness, I think they, a lot of the shots were not completed and stuff, and effects were not done, so they'll be able to do that. And yeah, I mean, once again, fandom axed, and as I said, the big corporate masters listened, and folks are gonna get their Snyder cut, so we can finally retire that hashtag.
And on that note, Will, where can our followers find you?
Yes, you can find me at Will and Polk. That's WILLMPOLK.
And you can follow me at SJ Belmont, SJBELMONT. Please follow our crew on Twitter at SNN Nerd. Friend us on Facebook, follow us on Instagram. But most importantly, rate, subscribe, and comment on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, Stitcher, or wherever you get your podcasts. Good night, Geek Out. You're welcome.